But like, and for me, you know, when I look at what they're doing in a much broader sense, and this has been the other weird part. Maybe it's not weird. I suppose I should expect it, but the story that like most works for me that they're doing, that I hope that they understand is like their best. I genuinely think their best storytelling is the Toni Storm stuff.
Oh yeah.
I think, and the only reason why I'm hesitant about it is the reaction whenever I post anything about it online is like uniformly negative.
I
Um,
think a lot
it,
of that has to do with the fact that it's so polarizing. Like in our circles, right? In the smart community circles, we'll call them, people are very against it because it's like specifically our bosses at Voices of Wrestling hate it because it's so sports entertainment until
Mhm.
last night. Everybody seemed to be on board with last night because that was freaking awesome. Like
Yes.
that, the
Yeah.
end of Dynamite last night absolutely ruled. So I get why you're getting that, because like the AEW fan base, and I've said this on our show a couple times, is really fractured right now. Like, because
Yeah.
you have like, you know, guys like us that are like Mike and I specifically that come from, you know, dudes that were watching New Japan, you know, when WWE was bad, and guys that went out of their way to watch Noah. Like I had a Noah podcast before Mike and I
Yeah.
had our show together. So I mean, like this is, and then you have they went out of their way to try to lure in some more WWE fans, and it's created this like dissatisfaction within fans of the product, because I think there's a lot of, they don't know what they are sometimes. Like you've said a little bit, like there's some weeks we want to be like the hardcore smart promotion, some weeks we want to, you know, tell our own bloodline stuff, and it's just like it creates confusion, I think, sometimes as to we've said this on their show a bunch. What is this product? Like, what do we want to be? And I think it's been better lately, but I do think there's a little bit of an identity crisis there.
Yeah, I think the last 2 weeks they're starting to shore up some of their weaknesses.
I agree.
I would say, and in fact, you said that, or Josh said that last week was the best episode in months. I think it was the best episode since the previous episode. I think the last 2 weeks have been like two of my favorite dynamites that I've seen in a very long time. It seems like they're starting to hit their stride again. It's not reflecting in the ratings just yet because I think that's going to take some time. It's going to take some more time of people kind of talking about it, like water cooler talk, and getting more buzz behind them. But I feel like if they keep on with the string of shows and some of that stuff, now are they gonna get, you know, back up to like close to 1 million again? I don't think so. I just think with the way the television is going, they're not ever gonna get to that point. But I do think they get to like a solid place here coming up pretty soon as they head into the TV rights negotiation. You know, the title of the episode is AEW is all the way back. So clearly I named the episode. Clearly I'm on a high for the last 2 weeks. But I do completely agree with everything you guys are saying. I am one of those guys that shit all over the Toni Storm thing since its inception. So much so I shit on the Mariah May thing from its inception. I hated it 3 weeks ago, but last night they won me over. I can change. People can change, like Rocky Balboa said, Rocky IV. So
I'll see. I love it, man.
And I think you're right. I think you're right now, Josh. I'm on your side with the Toni Storm thing.
I love it. You know, and the thing about, because I think Toni Storm is like, the thing about Toni Storm is when you watch her as a wrestler, even though she's doing this broad, ridiculous character, like, so to take the story out of everything and just like looking at her as the character that she's doing. And I come to it with a fairly large bias because my wife writes biographies of movie stars, of 1940s movie stars. So it's like right in my sweet spot, like as a character. But beyond that, the thing about Toni Storm is, out of everybody on the roster, every match that she has, the way that she tells stories in those matches, like when she's fighting a local, right? When it's just a like ridiculous filler match on Rampage, she makes the opponent feel like they matter. Like she makes every match have that. And I think that comes from Japan. Like I think there's a very, very Noah New Japan feel to it. Stardom rather, you know, like there is this very like she takes the matches, and I like the one that sticks out to me in particular is there was the tag team match the week before. I think it was like the week before Forbidden Door, and it was Tony and Mariah versus like Lady Frost and who was it? Somebody like another Ring of Honor somebody. And it's a match that like if it was anybody else, it would just be a total blowout. And instead it was like maybe she's gonna lose. Like it actually feels like there's a chance she might lose this. How is that possible? Because she actually tells a story and she actually sells for her opponents. And I think like that's just it's rare. It's just something that you don't see. So like I genuinely I love her. So I love her because she does both sides. Like she plays the sports entertainment side by doing that broad character. And she does that broad character really well. And again, my wife, I use my wife as the barometer for a lot of this stuff. Like my wife adores her to death. Just absolutely adores her. But at the same time, she puts on banger matches. Like her matches are really good. I think she does. I think she's one of the best female wrestlers at AEW. I think she really does.
Oh, for sure.
Consistently puts on just the best matches over and over and over and over again. So I think like aside from the story stuff, like that always gets me a lot of slack for her. But the stuff with Mina, like it's an actual like the stuff they did with Mina was like an actual moving emotional story for me. Like it really genuinely was like this is like a complicated, I think it's more complicated than anything. Like I think it's more textured, especially considering she's a cartoon character. Like that Toni is essentially just a broad cartoon character. I think that story was more complicated, had more detail work, and had more like emotional content than anything the WWE has done in years. Like it really, really like, I mean, even comparing it to the Liv Morgan stuff that they're doing right now, which I think is really fun and pretty sophisticated. Like the Toni Storm stuff blows it out of the water. And that's without even getting into the fact that it's, queer, which doing a queer storyline on a wrestling show, which again is the other part of like where the hate comes from that I saw just from posts, like 50% of it is because it's gay, So like the fact that they're doing all that stuff, I think is like, that's the stuff where I'm like, come on, I'm rooting for AEW to succeed because it takes balls to do stuff like that. And for how progressive and how much everybody loves Triple H, like that's not a story that they're going to do at the WWE.
Not everybody. So what I really liked about this, and I think this is what worked, is that she's been such a cartoon character at first, because Toni Storm's always been really good, and I think she's had a very interesting character arc since coming into this company, right? The whole thing with the Outcast, I think it's all kind of helped shape this actual character, right? And it was so over the top at first, and they've pulled back a lot of the really over the top. Remember, she used to wrestle as black and white, and she was just wrestling as the character. Like she was not doing a lot of her cool wrestling stuff for a long time when establishing this new character. Now we've slowly kind of worked real Toni Storm back in while establishing this new character, which, as we all agree, was a super cartoon, which the juxtaposition of last night's ultra violence, like Mariah May went Magnum TA on her and she was jamming that shoe into her head, which I also appreciate. They've been saying, watch out for the shoe for 6 months. And then she hit her with the shoe. I'm like, holy shit. Way to deliver. She didn't watch out for the shoe. Perfect. That's awesome. I can't say enough good things, but I think the ridiculousness played so well to when Toni Storm bled. Like, I mean, Moxley's at home going, man, that's a good gusher she got there. Like, this is why that works so well. Because, like, again, like Brian bled last night. It's like, oh, Brian bleeds all the time. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love blood and wrestling. But seeing Toni do it was like a tad grotesque. And like, it really like surprised me that they went so hardcore with it. Like Mariah was whipping her with a championship belt. I don't think I can't remember the last time. I can't remember a time off the top of my head that somebody was whipping somebody with a title belt. Like it was so, the stark violence just stood in such complete juxtaposition to everything else they've done, which in my mind is steal the freaking deal. Like I'm all in on this. It's so much better than I realized. But again, when you go back and look at everything they've done, they stuck the landing on this. Now, of course, we got a lot more work to go from here, but what a moment.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I like what Joshua brought up, where he was talking about the gay aspect of the storyline pissed a lot of people off and probably offended some fragile egos. Well, the blood on Toni Storm last night offended some fragile white people, specifically males of a demographic. They took to Twitter. They were pretty upset that she was bleeding, and I want to tell all you guys, go fuck yourselves. That was awesome.